Welcome to Insight with Dr. Val-Addo. My name is Dr. Stella Jeffrey, sitting in for Dr. Joseph Val-Addo. Our previous presentation were the African nature, African personality, and dignity of Africans. Now, today's presentation, which is 13th series, is titled, How Did Africans Live? How then shall we live in this current society? We can gather some truthful historical accounts from many sincere Europeans on how the people of the coastland of Western and Central Africa live as a response to the false claim of their former European philosopher and the derogatory statement about Africa and Africans. Africans on the Guinea coast coexisted in peace. Bernadette Coates Bosman inquired of the natives of Ivory Coast in description of Guinea on their relationship with neighbor as follows. When I inquired after the wars with other countries, they told me they were not often trouble with them. But if any difference happened, they choose rather to end the dispute amicably than come to arms. This is another typical or commendable characteristic of African living south of the Sahara. They coexist and relate peacefully with their neighbor. It is in their DNA. The following are 3 exceptions from contemporary events of Africa. One of the exceptions is my country, Liberia, in West Africa, which was one of the 2 countries that were never colonized, and the indigenous people lived there peacefully until the free slave settled in Liberia. But the American Liberians and the indigenous Liberians learned to coexist politically, economically, and socially in that country. An uncivil war erupted and continued for a long period, devastating the country. How then shall they live after the war? They should learn to coexist, and my suggestion is that we should have a union government where the American Liberians and the indigenous Liberians work together to govern the country. Another exception is Sudan in Northeast Africa, which had a religious war that went on for a long time between Muslim and Christian. How then were they going to live? The African Union and the United Nations saw no room for coexisting in that country. Therefore, they separated the country into 2, creating an independent South Sudan. How then shall they live? The separation caused them to learn good neighbor lines in order to coexist and relate peacefully with one another. The last exception is Cameroon in West Africa. The disunity and killing that have been going on in Cameroon between the English and the French side of the country for some time, which is probably due to different upbringing and thought pattern that can create misunderstanding in communication between the 2 sides. Unavoidable long-term consequence of the evil of the European colonization that Africans, the UN, and the AU have to deal with. How then should the Cameroon now live? First, the AU and Africans of influence should help the Cameroonians understand that Africans had peaceful personality before the coming of the Europeans to colonize them. Second, the UN, as a matter of urgency, should pursue the president and the politician of the country to understand the need to separate the 2 sides for obvious reasons. The contemporary history of Sudan and South Sudan has good lessons to guide all in the process, so they can learn to coexist peacefully again in spite of European language barriers, which have likely created miscommunication and long-term misunderstanding among the 2 sides. How then shall we live as Africans? Africans should learn from the past to live peacefully with fellow Africans and all people of good heart and social upbringing.
If this presentation has been a blessing, we want you to give us a thumb up, and we want you to continue to receive insights with Dr. Val-Addo. And so if you want it, please click the subscribe button and also click the share symbol to send it to your relatives and friends. And if you have any comment, we want you to write it to tell us how you are getting with these presentations, how you are getting on with this presentation. Once again, we want to remind you that all this is in a book that I have written, and the title of the book is The Rise of Africans and African Descent to Reign in Life. How we can rise up again to reign in this life, Volume 1. In the first place, redeeming Africa. We must redeem Africa. We must redeem Africans. We must redeem African descents. And I'm presenting issues that when you read them, you will know how Africa must be redeemed first before we can rise up to reign in this life. God bless.